Hi, welcome back to Heretic Owl Tarot. My name is Liz, your guide on this journey on this channel. I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for such a positive response to the human design profile videos. I know, obviously, if this is your first time, welcome. But the last time I put out videos, I said that I was going to be focusing more on the human design profile readings versus doing both those and the zodiac sign readings. And I also said that was just the guidance that I received, basically. So I feel like, it's following my strategy and authority, following that feeling. So, that's what we do, even if it doesn't make sense to us. So there is a link in the description below if you don't know your human design profile. Even if you don't know anything about human design, this isn't necessarily to teach you about human design or, kind of be so advanced that you don't get it. This is more just message by profile, because it's just an added element, a different way of receiving messages outside of your sun, moon, rising, right? So it is still about the tarot message. And of course, I do generally give some sort of blurb about each profile before we begin. So with that being said, we're using the Oracle of Destiny and the Muse tarot today. I was kind of like, for a couple days, I was just kind of like whining to myself because I haven't bought any new decks and I can't even tell you how long. But then I was reminded that I had bought this deck and another one these were probably the last, this deck and the other one is probably the last decks that I bought. And I just kind of put them on a desk out of the way and totally forgot about them. So I was glad that it, kind of presented itself like, hello, I'm here, I'm new. So we're going to use it and the Muse. What was that? The World? Oh, that was the Wheel. Interesting, because I've seen that a lot lately. Anyway, let's get into it. So if you're here, welcome. But you are more than likely a 4-6 or the opportunist role model. And I do have a little thing I found on Facebook, and it doesn't have a name of who actually posted this. So I would love to give them credit. And if I find it, of course, I'll credit them in the description below. But this says, okay, actually, this is the 12 archetypal defense mechanisms of the Not Self series. So, and the Not Self is more, like shadow side of human design. That's kind of like, when your conditioning and trauma and ego and things like that start to override your natural state of being. So this is more how that would show up for you potentially based on obviously your profile. So for the 4-6, it says they feel unaccepted because they are disconnected. They adopt a rigid attitude of denial that hides a deep fear of not being accepted. They maintain a tight control over their lives and are adept at masking their vulnerability, thus making it difficult for others to pierce their aloofness. So that's interesting. Does that sound like you when you're just, kind of going through some things? Like maybe it comes up when you're faced with a new experience, or when you're kind of right at the edge of, wanting to do something new or stepping outside of your comfort zone. And then it's kind of all that muckiness that has just kind of attached itself to you over your lifetime, then that starts coming up. So yeah, definitely curious if that resonates for you. So let me know in the comments below. And let's get an oracle card, and then of course we'll get your tarot messages out. We have Mercury. So I actually want to read from the book, which I wasn't even really going to do. But then I realized that it has this aspect of the hand, which makes sense since there's this illustration of the hand on here. But anyway, so it says, aspect of the hand. The pinky finger is that of intuition, dialectical and commercial skills, but also of the relationship with one's family of origin, with the tight carnal relationship with another, and finally with one's inner child. It is connected to the god Mercury, who appears frequently in mythological tales. Many of his attributes are recognizable in the personality of the archetype Mercurian. He is famous for the wings on his sandals, which made him the messenger of the gods. And really, I should have been holding this up here so you can stare at that and I'll just read. Sorry about that. And then it says divinatory meaning. It always feels like I'm like reading in front of the class. Anytime I have to read anything out loud, it like brings me back to high school and like stuttering over my words, and like I'm not a very great speaking of Mercury, which is interesting because Mercury is tied to communication and all of that. So it says, to the Greeks, Mercury was a teacher, a god, a king who could perform magic, transmit wisdom, and write. He brings a desire and ability to communicate with others on many levels. He guides our relationship with money, sex, and our ancestors. Not only that, but he is also the carrier of dreams that guards and transmits the messages of childhood that still exist within us. Now is a time to listen to your inner child. It will know how to guide you to places of inspiration, to the root of what you need. Definitely. Like, obviously the first thing I thought of, when I saw the card was communication, throat chakra, regardless of whether, your throat chakra is defined or not. That's obviously the communication center. Did I say throat chakra was defined or not? That's interesting. But throat center, in relation to human design. But even with throat chakra, right? Like, is there something that, is there a conversation that you've been avoiding? Is there something that you need to say, something that you need to communicate? Whether that is, one-on-one individually with somebody or collectively. Maybe you have a message that you want to share, and maybe it's just becoming more uncomfortable to not share it. In whatever capacity, whether that's doing videos or TikTok or, writing, starting a blog. So let's see what comes out in relation to this Mercury card. Also, we just came out of Mercury retrograde. That ended, 6 of Cups. Speaking of inner child, amazing. Mercury retrograde ended on September 14th or 15th, somewhere in there. And it was in the sign of Virgo. So Mercury rules over Virgo and Gemini. So you could have some significant placements there. Maybe it was a time of really honing in your voice, like really, what is it that inspires you? What passions do you want to share? Because even on this Mercury card, they're tying their laces here. So it can go either way, especially, speaking of Mercury retrograde, it would have been a period of stopping. And it's like, did your shoe come untied as you were walking and you have to stop to tie your shoe again? Or, so just taking the time to reflect, to hone in, to, make sure, dot your T's, cross your I's, however that saying goes. So we go from the Seven of Cups or the Six of Cups to the Seven of Cups. And I love a progression. Ooh, because, and especially in the same reading, especially so close together, because that means that you are moving through the energy. You're not just kind of like stuck in it. You're not in the middle of it. You're actively moving through it. And then we have the Hanged Man, Suspension. They're also even upside down, seeing things from a different perspective, which is also very Mercury retrograde. We have the Ace of Cups. Love that. I'm sorry, Ace of Pentacles. Speaking of throat chakra, like, can your girl get it together over here? We have the Devil. And the Emperor. Beautiful. Who do we have? We have the Page of Voices, or the Page of Swords, at the bottom of the deck. Five of Pentacles. Queen of Cups. All right. So let me make sure everything is in frame here. I definitely do get this sense that retrograde season is either bringing up a lot of stuff for you to clear out, and or giving you clarity. Because it is interesting that the Mercury card talks about the inner child, and then we have the Six of Cups to start, which is the card of the inner child. To me, it's the card of the past, nostalgia. I mean, there is this child here, this, grown version of said child, possibly. It's interesting. There's this planet here, and it has rings around it. So, but it doesn't really look like Saturn, or is it Jupiter that has rings around it too, or is it just Saturn? I don't know. Even too, how, this almost looks like a mirror that you would hang on your wall. And it looks like they're sitting at the bottom of the ocean. So you could have been heavy in your feels the last few weeks. I mean, Venus was in retrograde in Leo for a month or so also. So, Venus is about beauty and love. How do we express love? How do we receive it? How do we want to be perceived? Our outer expression. So that could have brought some things up for you, depending on wherever Leo is in your chart. But again, right, I mean, Mercury just came out of retrograde, so wherever Virgo is in your chart, there could have been something about that. But there is kind of this emphasis too on communication. But like I said, so the Six of Cups is the card of the past. It's about nostalgia, remembering the good old days. But, I mean, when we're dealing with inner child, it's not so much... of course it is connecting to those good old days, because when you were younger, what were the things that you loved doing? What really filled your heart? What filled your cup? But also even just working through the inner child and conditioning and all of that is, what is required to discover, where your not self theme shows up, like we were talking about at the beginning of this message, and how to release it. And it's interesting because it's paired with the Ace of Pentacles. I don't know why I cannot just say this card right. I also really do just find it interesting how my throat chakra is having a really hard time through this. So maybe it is, again, honing in on your message, honing in on how you want to communicate something, or, if you are avoiding some level of communication, then, that could be where like your throat chakra just gets like hung up on words, right? So Ace of Pentacles is a brand new, it's an ace, so it's a new beginning. And Pentacles have to do with our money, our time, our physical body. It's, how do we make our money? How do we spend it? How do we save it? How do we spend our time? How do we invest our time? How are we taking care of the vessel that we are occupying, right? So with it being an ace, there is a new opportunity. And with it being paired with the Six of Cups, it could be revisiting an opportunity. Maybe this is something that in the past you wanted to do, or it's an idea that has been, brewing for some time, especially dealing with emotions. So it's been in your emotional body for some time. Just that feeling, like, that inner knowing of just, you have a message in there. And it's kind of like, this opportunity showing up for you to communicate that or start to. This is like very, it is an earth card anyway, but it is very earthy. There's all these stones around here. There's all these flowers. I know here we're going into like fall and winter season. So, it's almost like soaking up as much time outside as you can. And maybe even that helps you clear your head, especially since it's just the head really that's like in this picture. And then the Seven of Cups here. The Seven of Cups talks about options. There's, a couple different ways that the Seven of Cups can go. It's either, looking at everything. It's like the Marie Kondo effect. What makes you feel good and what doesn't. So like what stays and what goes. But it can also be daydreamy. It can be like creating too many options to where it's almost like you create confusion, because it's like, there's all this stuff that I have to do and I don't know like really where to start. Because even like looking at this card, there's all of these fish down here and they're just like, they just kind of look like they're thinking, or maybe a bit uncertain, like, not wanting to take the wrong first step or not wanting to choose the wrong, fish in here. And is there such a thing as wrong? I'm not sure. I was just telling a friend earlier that something about either like an accident or, shooting myself in the foot. And then I was like, but is there such a thing? I don't really think so. I think that's something our ego makes up, because whatever decision we make, wherever we go, that's where we are, right? We're going to end up exactly where we need to be anyway. So it's like, just trying things. You have to try things in order to see how it works, right? You have to try it to see even how you feel about it. I also love how there's kind of this triangle looking thing here, and there's also this triangle here, which is kind of interesting. So I don't know if maybe there's something to do with triangles. I feel like triangles do have a specific meaning. I just can't think of what that is right now. So if you feel called to, you can maybe just Google it. So, it's also like remembering that like you don't have to commit to anything except for committing to what does make you feel good. You try something because you felt good about it. And if that feeling changes, then you follow the next thing that feels good, and you just kind of keep doing that. Obviously, that depends on your strategy and authority too. So, definitely, like look into that also. But outside of that, and I only mention that because obviously we're talking about human design here, and really without like all of the noise around us, we all naturally follow our strategy and authority. But it's like when conditioning and that not self comes in is when we start like getting veered off of course. So you're probably, even if you're not familiar with human design, you're probably already following your strategy and authority in some capacity. And no doubt, if you were to look it up, if you're not familiar, no doubt you would be able to pinpoint times in your life where you would be like, oh, I was following my strategy and authority there, and that got me to this next step, which got me here, which really worked out in this way, right? So, anyway, and especially with this paired with a devil card, because the devil, it's the card of Capricorn, and it's about the things that control us. You know, it's about illusions. You know, we can see on this card that this person has like strings attached to their fingers, which are attached to these two beings. So it's about having control or feeling a lack thereof, whichever one makes you, which a little bit, I think they're kind of the same-ish thing. Like the less control we feel we have, the more control we try to have, which again, just I feel like kind of throws things out of whack, but it's also equally scary to just kind of let things unfold. But this is definitely like the devil would definitely be that not self. It would be the ego. It would be, you know, allowing yourself to stay in this state of uncertainty and expecting things to be perfect before you put yourself out there or before you start communicating the thing or sharing whatever, you know, your message is. And maybe that is based on, you know, your inner child because you picked up this perfectionist wanting it to look a certain way, or even using that as an excuse to not do something like, oh, it doesn't look like this, you know, so I can't do it. I won't do it until it looks like this. And then like really grounding your heels into that too. This could even be something that, you know, through Mercury retrograde, it either came up for you or maybe you recognized it or something along those lines where you almost just kind of recognize where you're holding yourself back. And sometimes you don't recognize that. Sometimes it does take somebody saying to you, bro, that's an excuse. You know, it does not have to be perfect. Nobody's going to know any effing way, you know, and nothing. The end result never looks like the first attempt, right? Like even on this channel, oh my God, it was such a shit show. The first videos that I put out, they were so bad. I had no clue. It was just like, I basically got to the point where I was just like, I have to do it because I'm going to drive myself crazy if I don't. And however it looks is however it looks. And I feel like it looked bad for a while. And even now it's not perfect. Like I would love to upgrade my mic. And you know, I'm manifesting that one day I will be able to afford that. And, you know, but like the table setting is different. The message, of course, right, is different. And that's kind of, you know, like what I ended up doing was just, I kept doing the same thing until it stopped feeling good. And even focusing on these human design readings, I was doing the zodiac readings for a while. And then I introduced the zodiac and human design readings. And for a while I had ample time to do 24 readings a month. And then that changed. And I'm like barely able to get 12 messages out in a month. But that's also, you know, very Wheel of Fortune-ish too. Like, you know, things change. But the point is, like, the way that it looks now is nowhere near what it looked like in the beginning. You could even go back, if you care, to one of those first readings and see for yourself. Okay. So that's just that, but that's the evolution of things. And that evolution is possible because I tried, because I was doing, and because I was like, this is working, this is not, or this is not feeling so good anymore. So I'm going to do this because that does feel good. So, right. But this combination is going to kind of keep you in confusion and keep you like kind of in that fear or in that not self thing. We have the Hanged Man, which is, again, I was saying before, seeing things from a different perspective. It's about delay, suspension, even them being upside down and looking in this direction. There is a new perspective that you have gotten, even if it hasn't like taken root yet. I don't know why I feel that way, but like there's something that's shifted. Even if it's just, it's like that rusty or like stripped like screw or something that, it's just like you got it moving just a little bit, but it was enough to break it free. And now it's a matter of continuing to loosen that up. Because with the Hanged Man being paired with the Emperor, so the Hanged Man, it's a water sign. I just don't know which one, and I can't think. What's interesting, kind of veering off course here, is that there's, I was pointing out the triangles in both of these cards, and look at the bottom of this Hanged Man. This looks more like mountains to me, but they're triangles. There's a triangle in their shoe. Something about triangles. Even this eye right here, because this illustration here looks like an eye to me, but there's this doorway right here too. This could have even something to do with your third eye. Like maybe you have felt an opening in your third eye, or even just like an evolution or ascension in the third eye in some capacity. But like I said, there's definitely, even, mountains represent a journey, and, like just kind of the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows. So again, this definitely is not something that, has been very easy, but it's definitely necessary. And the Emperor card is Aries. And the Emperor is all about like authority, confidence. It's the divine masculine. So, it's being in that divine masculine energy, the energy, of course, not the gender, but having the audacity, even there's, this is crazy because it's like, it's becoming the mountain. I can't even tell you how many times I've actually looked at this card. I thought this was a flower. This is an effing mountain. And no shit, because this image back here is of a mountain too. That is crazy that I'm just seeing that literally for the first time that way. But that's what it is. It's like using your journey. It's using it for the power of good. It's owning it also, because I think a lot of us understand our story to a certain extent, especially if you've done a lot of inner child or if you're on the path of doing inner child. But there's a difference of knowing it and also owning it. Like, instead of seeing it as something that happened to you or just a circumstance of your life, it's accepting that journey, that development of your own mountain. Like whatever created that pressure in you, that created the mountain or formed the mountain within you, like that's your power. And maybe that's what your message is about too. But look how they're just like, they are the mountain. That is so, I don't even know if it's coming across, like if it's coming out as powerful as it feels, but I hope so. Speaking of mountains, we have more mountains here. This is the Page of Swords. So again, pages are when we start trying things. It's having a bit of that newbie attitude. There's a spiral over the crown chakra up here. Not to mention they're putting their glasses on, so they are seeing very clearly. here, right? There's the mountains, there's this figure that's dancing in front of the mountain. Like, swords have to do with our minds, its ideas, inspiration, perspective. So this is putting a new idea into practice and seeing if it holds weight. See how you feel about it. What do you think about it? This also, it's like rising above. It's like creating this new mountain is how this feels. But then there's also this like 5 of Pentacles, which talks about lack, scarcity, being left out in the cold. This might cause like a physical reaction in you. It might be like physically exhausting to go through this process, and especially the emotional body, because the body keeps a score, right? There's that book. A lot of our experiences are kept in our body, in our nervous system, our vagal nerve. So working through this, or even putting this message out, communicating this, to the collective or to somebody else, it may cause physical exhaustion. So I feel like this is saying to get as much rest as your body requires, like honor that first and foremost. And then the Queen of Cups. This feels like open heart. Throat is very clear here. Like they're even kind of like stretching their neck out. Their chin is up. This is very confident and very much in emotions, right? Like they're closer to the surface now. I mean, this figure is above the water, but they're closer to the surface than the 6 of Cups is. But this feels like heart chakra right here, open, flowing, even a portal, The 8 of Pentacles, which is about putting the work in, practice. Yeah, it's time. It is time. Is that like Rafiki from Lion King? I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for allowing me to read your cards. I'm sending all of my love to you. Bye.